Okay, so to start, I'm going to be talking about hybrid children today. And many of you have heard about them, so maybe some of you haven't. But this is an exciting moment because this is, I think, one of the first live presentations of this particular subject. So this is a big moment, and again, that it's on the equinox is very interesting. So hybrid children, what are they? There's tons of hybridization programs that have gone on through millennia. I mean, we're a product of hybridization. There's 20 programs or more that Corey has said, and so there's many different kinds. This one in particular is about what I'm calling the hybrid children. So I'll go into what that means, how they're created, and that's what we're going to be talking about. How it's connected to you. Because that's one of the things that's really important is we're talking about contact, and sometimes it can be very out there or just for that group of people, but it really is for us. It's for all of us. And so this it's to you. So, first and foremost, if perhaps there was a galactic council, which there is, and that's one of the great things about this Congress is, I mean, just 5 years ago, at ufology congresses, they were still asking the questions, do aliens exist? Yeah, they do. And so now we're taking that and we're like, yes, of course they do. Now what do we do with it? Now how do we disclose it? And now how do we interact and engage with extraterrestrials because they do exist? So, Galactic Council, they're up there. They're going, okay, we have this prime directive. We can't connect in with the humans, as of 5 years ago. What do we do? Like, how do we make our presence known? How do we make them remember, but not completely freak them out, and have it be something that is digestible and works to remind them that they are a part of this greater cosmic play? So in this council meeting, they're going, okay, well, who should be representing? How can we make first contact? And they're like, should these guys make first contact? No, I don't think that they're going to like them. What about these guys? Oh, no, they really don't like them. So they're going, okay, what do we do? And this is just an idea of feeling into one of the greater reasons for the hybrid program. So that's why I'm talking about this. What would be receptive to humans? What would be digestible to humans, especially on a frequency level and an acceptance level? Because as humans, we still have crazy prejudices against our own species, which is really stupid. But nonetheless, we do. And so how are we going to integrate other species that look like this? Well, hybrid children is one of the solutions that some of these beings have come up with as an integration that is digestible. Much better, like that's something that we can work with. And children is something that we can be receptive to, especially the fact that they are our children. That makes it even different. And there's two with the children and with this hybridization program. It's the reintegration of the archetypes that we've been missing within humanity. The child, right? The inner child archetype has been eradicated, as well as the galactic archetype. We forgot that we're even connected to the stars. So that's two of the purposes as to why they're coming in this form for us. So what is the hybrid program? So this particular hybrid program, where we're talking about the hybrid children, was first created through abduction. Now, there's been many different kinds of abduction, many different beings doing it, many different greys doing it. This one is connected to greys and mantises and certain reptilians. And for them, they were dying out. They couldn't perpetuate themselves. And so they're like, crap, what do we do? They're like, let's go back to where we didn't screw ourselves up. Now I just said we. Who is we? In some cases, the Greys are a future version timeline of humanity. You can see right now us going down this genetically modified path, a preference towards the head, the intellect, the mind, different kinds of duplication of our beings, and eventually that comes to the point where you can't reproduce. And so this is where they've taken themselves, this species, which is a parallel timeline human. So they're like, okay, well, let's take ourselves back before this happened. And that was about, 80 years ago. And in the past decade, this program has stopped. We've started altering ourselves to where it probably wouldn't be that clean, the genetics that they're looking at. So what's happening? So a lot of you, how many of you are contactees or know that you are in some form? Yeah? And this is from this abduction program, and men and women were taken from all over the world, and I am...
Abducciones, y yo también soy uno de ellos, y me llevaron.
Eggs and sperm are taken to create children, to create other civilizations, to create other species. And that's one of the things that's not talked about, because the abduction program has been talked about for at least 40, 50 years. People have been talking about it. And it has been quite a terrifying thing. But the other half to it that no one talks about is, what did they do with the genetic material? Right? They're like, they took the genetic material, and then it's like, well, what did they do with it? And this is one of the things that they did with it. Now, they created, in this program, at least 5 different civilizations. And the civilizations have completely taken off in their evolution, and in, say, the 100 years of the abduction program, our children that were created from our genetics are actually coming back to help us now. So that's really neat in this awakening process. But there was a particular group of children who were kept from that evolution to come back and be re-assimilated with Earth. And that is the hybrid children. So it would be that these kids are created, as you can see, like from actual human mothers. And the human mothers would be pregnant, and it could be 2 weeks, it could be months on the ship or on Earth. There's been tons of cases, and we'll go over that in a second, of this happening. Okay, so how were they created? There's a mix of, so they're taking the human genetics, which have many different extraterrestrial strains in it, and they're taking those particular strains and they're creating what they want with that and mixing it with alien genetics. So it'd be human and alien, but we have alien within us. And certain kids can be created just with, like, say I'm a woman, I wouldn't need a man as well and then an alien. It could just be created just from my genetics. And it can be spliced in very many different ways, to where there could be 10 parents involved in the creation of this particular being, or there could just be one. And this is parents, meaning fathers and mothers, so men and women are included in this. What is the purpose? This is the most interesting part to me, because the genetic programs, the hybridization, the stuff on the ship, not all of it was pretty at all. And I have lots of memories that weren't pretty. Most of them were more positive for me, because I came in to this planet understanding this greater cosmic play out. It was one of the things that I was allowed to remember, was my connections. And okay, you got to do this. It's going to be weird, but it's one of the ways that we're going to help humanity remember that they are connected to the stars. So the purpose in the hybrid children is it's a step-up program. It's a step-up frequency program. So how many of you guys have heard of, say, like indigo children, right? Crystal kids, yeah. Okay, so over this past 100 years, over the generations, they're taking different genetic lineages, whatever has that particular extraterrestrial nuance that they're looking for, and they alter those fetuses energetically or physically over the generations. So my grandma, for instance, was taken, my dad was taken, I was taken. And over the generations, as they're altering, one of the things that they're doing is they're stepping up the frequency, they're stepping up the genetics. Because if all of a sudden you had my grandma Kenna Faye, and then you had like me, and you didn't step up my dad, like the frequency would be just like so different, it wouldn't have a place to land. These kids coming in now, the ones being born, the little babies, they are so bright, they are so aware. I mean, if you've been around any of them, they totally know what's going on. But if I didn't get stepped up and you guys didn't get stepped up, that would be weird, right? They would have no place in our culture and society. So it had to be one of those things that happened over time so that it wasn't just like this glowing light being baby with giant eyes or something. So it's been a process. So in that step-up program, one of the things that's happening is now the kid's being born. So my brother had a baby, so my little nephew, brightest kid, he's playing like chess at age 3. Like he's just super aware. He knows everything that's going on. He, in that way, is the closest that he could be, one codon away actually, from the hybrid kids. So these kids that were created on the ships, they're almost the same as the kids being born today, these star children being born. The difference is environment. If you have a kid that's on a ship that understands the full context of creation, time, everything that that involves, that is going to create a very different kid than a kid that's like, here's some macaroni and cheese and go watch the TV. You know, like it's going to create a different type of being, even if the genetics and the energetics are very similar. So the kids being born are one step away from the hybrids that will come down. Why is this? One of the things is because if we are to meet extraterrestrials and they're all of a sudden supposed to be face to face with us, many that have had that happen go into psychic shock, can't remember it, and they just can't handle it. So the hybrid kids are a way of first contact to where you can digest it. The frequency is not too high to where you just go into psychic shock. All the stuff that hasn't been worked through in your psychology and your emotions and stuff doesn't fry you. It's just enough for you to be able to handle and digest. So it's a form. One of their purposes is first contact. Okay, so this is actually a very similar scene to what I remember. I was taken up when I was a kid, so like 3, 5 years old, and I would be in these groups of, you can kind of see like the little human kids, and then these hybrid kids, and we would play these energy games. We'd throw like chi balls at each other, we'd levitate, like do all this kind of stuff. I gotta remember how to do that, because I've forgotten, but we'd be playing these energy games and be learning what we needed to do to help humanity. So yes, there were negative things going on the ships, you know, that were not kosher to the human experience and what we think is right for us. And there was a lot of teaching, a lot of learning going on to go, hey, remember when you're sitting at that UFOlogy Congress in 2017 that we're supposed to like change the world and your mission is this. So those imprints of what you needed to do in this incarnation were being put in. And not just on these particular ships. You've been on tons of ships with different star nations getting your particular download of what you need to do and who you need to be for this planetary change. The kids, this is one of my favorite parts, the kids would be introduced to their parents on the ships, and some of the parents would just not be able to handle it at all. So they'd be handed, you know, their hybrid baby, and they would just straight up drop it. Yeah. And some of them, so a lot of them like just couldn't handle it at all, because even in this space of being on a ship and being in this like altered space that they got screen memories of, they could barely remember, it's deeply buried in the subconscious. Even from that deeply buried place, they just couldn't handle the idea that they had this half alien kid. So there was a lot going on there. One of the things that I want to share too is these are some of my experiences. And as they started to come back to me, which was about 2011, 2012, which was after my awakening, like I've always kind of been keyed in and tuned in, but that really started around 2009 for me. But around 2012, all of these memories started coming back. And I started getting all these downloads of the actual information of how this works, what I'm telling you right now. And I'm just going, okay, I've had training in this on different like extrasensory perception levels, but am I just delusional? Like, what's going on about this, you know? And after I started getting these downloads, I started looking online if there was anything else. And at the time, there was very little, very little. You know, I put up a site and I hadn't put up any videos yet. And, you know, 50 people came to the site, you know, within a few months, like not very much was going on. Put out a few videos, and then all of a sudden, there was this accelerated remembering that happened where thousands of people started coming to my website, to the videos, started remembering, started emailing me, and all of a sudden, within a year, it went from like 100 to 20,000, and then by the next year, you know, something like 100,000. So it went up at an exponential rate. And this timing was right around 2012, which is, of course, when I think a lot of those time clocks of like, hey, remember what happened? Remember your cosmic mission? That's when it all lit up and started to really move. And so at the same time, as this acceleration is coming into my sphere, and at this point, I've talked to thousands of people that this is happening to. So this around the world, all languages. So this is not just like me or something. It's a lot of people, and people that you would not expect, and people that don't understand it. I had a college friend of mine email me, and he said, and he doesn't know anything that I'm doing, and he said, I had the weirdest dream that I was on this beach, and I had this baby, and it had these really big eyes, and I just couldn't handle it. It was freaking me out, and so I gave it to you. And it's just like this random guy from college. And so this is just happening on a really big global scale. So I looked out at the collector, and I'm like, is this happening anywhere else? Yes. It was big groups in the Netherlands were getting the same download, having these same inspirations. Mary Rodwell in Australia, exact same thing. I got my regression, and a lot of these memories came back through Barbara Lamb. Barbara Lamb's been into all this information and having these regressions since the 1990s. So this has been going on for a long time. Lots of this, and it's the same information going on around the world. The people that are emailing me, which is really great, some of them that hadn't seen any of my videos or anything that's going on, they would say these things that I'm like, you wouldn't know that unless you had read the information, unless it was something that really happened to you. So it's just been really crazy and amazing. Okay, so are they benevolent? Yes. It's a good question, because in some forms, especially with some of these extraterrestrials, they reflect whatever energy you're putting out. So if you have a negative experience, sometimes it's reflecting that deep subconscious within you. Sometimes these particular extraterrestrials, too, are reflecting you, a cosmic aspect of you that, say, blew up your planet or went in a negative timeline. And so it can reflect the deepest primordial disastrous negativity that you have created. And so that can happen, too. Some people have experienced, one of my friends who was a contactee, he knew that he had these hybrid kids, but he was so terrified to accept the idea that they came to him in this really like negative, scary form. So it can go in different ways, but primarily with about 95% of the people that I've talked to, it's always very loving and very caring. This is a drawing that I did, and the kids, one of the things that's really interesting to me is that when these kids were genetically created, I mean, think about the idea of creating a living conscious being. That's pretty amazing, like the science that goes into that. And they're taking the genetics and they're taking the energetics, so the archetypal imprints of whatever magic you have, and imprinting it and creating that child with that as well. So they're like these genetic masters creating these beings, but they would pop out and not be that healthy. A lot of them were dying for years, decades of human time. They were not doing well. And a lot of the memories, I've had dozens of memories of these little babies that are like super small but very conscious, and I'm always like, are you gonna make it? Like, because they're just so frail, and it wasn't going very well in the program, and they didn't know what to do. The Greys, the Mantises, the different beings that were involved with this, they didn't know what to do. And so what happened were that some of these parents, particularly the mothers on the ships, amongst the being abducted, having all this crazy stuff happen to you, somehow found a place of love within them. They dug in there and were like, okay, I can love this baby. And when this happened, everything changed. The babies started thriving. The babies started, kept living and actually grew stronger and went in this positive direction from love. So it really altered the program, because the Greys and the different beings in charge were like, oh, we have to use emotion, we have to use love as an ingredient for the actual physical vessel of this being to go on, which is amazing. And so it's just to show that there's something exquisitely beautiful about the capacity of human love and human emotion that we need as a species, but even as we go into the stars, it has its place. Love has its place beyond this plane, which is profound. So that's the love and the nurture between a mom and a baby. What do they look like? Okay, so the first ones that will come, and I'll talk about that in a minute, look more human. So they would just have bigger eyes. And these kids coming in right now through mothers physically, I mean, they look pretty alien sometimes. You know, they look quite different, and their eyes are just like glowing star beams. So it's more like that. As contact and as we acclimate to this different kind of energy and different kind of looks, because looks are so important to us as a species, then they will become more alien looking. Where do they live? They live right now on spaceships, particularly the spaceships of the different hybrid civilizations created that continued in their evolution. This is a Shalaniya ship, part of the Aiel civilization, which is a hybrid race, and they are the ones that did the Phoenix Lights over Arizona in 1997, one of the biggest mass sightings. And they've continued to show themselves in Arizona. There's Dimensional Gate opening from Sedona, and a lot of ships, as you know, a lot of activities going on there, and so they are on those ships waiting. So they're now with these different hybrid civilizations, different star nations, kind of like awaiting to come. They're figuring out, these kids are learning the ways of humans. They're like, they eat what? Like, they do what? You know, they're figuring us out so that they can fit in to a certain degree, even though that they won't fit in. They're going to be different. Okay, so physical assimilation, which is the most interesting to me. Okay, so if an alien was to land and first contact happens, at this moment in our collective, you know, say a hybrid children, your kid arrives, and you're like, oh, my kid, my child, and you're like, I'm so excited to see you, like, you're such a higher dimensional being. And then you're like, okay, well, I have to go to work, so you can sit at the table in the square room, and there's like some food and a TV, or I can take you to a school and you can sit in like a box all day. Does that sound good? They're not going to be into that. That's not what they're about. So the way that we're living as humanity right now doesn't fit with what's happening in the stars. The consciousness, which is reflected in our daily lives and how we exist as cultures, is too low. It's too low of a vibration for us to merge, to connect. And it's too low of a vibration for us. We're like stepping up, like all of our cells are activating, our genetics are activating, and we're in these old structures in so many different forms, whether that's economic, physical structures, food, all these different things. So one of the things that's critically important for this assimilation is for us to shift the whole cultural and physical paradigm that we're existing in. Now, this doesn't need to happen to all of the world. This just needs to happen to select pockets of the world so that the 100th monkey can occur. So I'll talk about that. So the idea is like we're sitting here in Montserrat, which is a sacred site. If all of us in this room were able to fully connect and have physical contact and do some of these other things I'm going to be talking about, that's enough of a consciousness shift just in this room, beaming out of this sacred site, to have and to start altering the collective consciousness for other humans to be ready so that they can handle it. So it's like part of humanity, you guys, and different people that are awake enough, that have gone through their stuff enough, can be ready for this first contact assimilation. So the first contact assimilation will happen in the different sacred sites, because the thing is too, is it's like, are the kids going to come to like New York City and just like hang out in New York City? It's like, no, they're not going to. They need to be in a frequency vibration, a land frequency vibration, a dimensional gate vibration that is balanced with their frequency. It's equal to their frequency. And another thing too in these sacred sites is the collective consciousness is at a 0 point. There's no conditioning that's happening. And so it makes it really available for something new to be born. Whereas if you go to some city, there's going to be a collective consciousness that's pretty ingrained that doesn't have that capacity for that spaciousness. So the sacred sites are like free zones for them to come to. So these different parents, different people who are ready for first contact are going to be coming, and this is a download that I started receiving in 2012, actually on December 21st, as well as my dad. And many other people have received this download too, which I'll talk about in a second. And so these different sacred sites we're assigned to. I don't have one in Spain, but there needs to be one. These are the major ones. These are the major chakras and vortices. These are the vortices. So like you've got like Egypt, South Africa. You've got the different chakra points like Uluru, Mount Fuji. So these are the different high energy places that they can actually exist in. These are also the different high energy places that are important for us to be in so that we can get out of the collective consciousness programming so that we can raise our vibration to meet them halfway. So they're like, okay, I'll meet you halfway, you meet me halfway, and then we can have some physical contact, because what we're going towards isn't just some ETs coming down in a ship and us saying hi and then saying hi and then they like go back up. It needs to actually be something that can happen more permanently, more regularly. So part of my focus is in the area of the southwest of the United States, Mount Shasta, Hawaii, and a little bit in Glastonbury, England. So some of you, different people around the world, have different assignments. Like Hanavi, who's speaking later today, she got asked to move to Peru because she knows that that's her assignment, to be down there for this new thing happening. So we have our physical location assignments as well, which is really exciting. Okay, I could talk all day about this particular subject, so I'm going to just keep on going. Okay, so also, the different structures that we live in, these are all 90-degree angles. That keeps us in the third dimension. We need to be in round we need to be in triangles, we need to be in different sacred geometric structures. And these different communities that are going to be created, so these different microcosmic collectives in these sacred sites have to be designed in sacred geometry so that we can really allow our frequency to just go off, to just fly. And people all around the world, because this is more my dad's subject, people all around the world are getting the exact same downloads to build these sacred geometric communities all around the world in sacred sites. They might not be like, okay, well, it's for first contact, but maybe it'll end up being anyways. So there's different parts that we're assigned to. You know, that maybe they're just meant to build it and something happens later. So people around the world are getting this inspiration. And it all started, too, around the same time of, like, 2010 to these past, 7 years. It's all coming through. Oop, the other direction. So this is a scene of me walking with my hybrid child. I've had many different dream encounters, memories that have been so profoundly, they're a knowing. They're not like some of you, when you get into this realm of like screen memories, and you're like digging through the screen memory, and you're like going past that owl, or going past that thing that was put in the way, and you move beyond that. You go into this space of knowing where you're like, that was a real experience. I can feel it in my cells. I can feel it in every ounce of my being. And in that space, I've had so many, and they are usually awakened, these memories, in sacred sites for me. So I'll go to Mount Shasta, and it's like I have the most profound memory of actually like breastfeeding my hybrid child. Like, and I'm not a physical mother yet, but it's like I can't make that up, and if they're programming me to remember that, they did a really good job, because like I could feel the milk, going through, like it's that deep, and like that level of love, that I just don't think can be synthetically created. So I've had lots of these different experiences. Again, that could be a whole other talk. And tons of people have had their experiences too. A lot of ufologists, primarily more located in the Southwest, have physically met their hybrid kids. I know 3 people that are very credible people that have physically met them. And
Bridget,
yes.
5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Oh. So I've met 3 people that have physically met them in person on this physical plane. So it is something that is very real. And in those encounters, and in each of those 3, there was a telepathic engagement, because it was a telepathic conversation. And it was always about, what are you doing in your life to become a better person? So that is always the directive of these kids and this energy and this program is, how can you be a better person for you? So it's not even for them. There isn't that selfishness around it. It's like, how can you participate in humanity's awakening? Which is good for me, because as I've been like skeptical and like, but then I'm like having these experiences, I'm like, well, what is the agenda? And ultimately, if the agenda is for us to be better, then that's good in whatever form, if that's what they want, if that's what we want. So my dad's met them physically. He met a group of them, and many of them are from every different culture around the world. And he had that experience when he was in Maui, when we were in Hawaii. So it's in these different places that these memories come up. And I know I talked to at least one person that had a dream last night. So it'll start to brew. And this is happening more and more to the most unassuming people. Like a farmer in the middle of America who's like a Christian will like contact me and be like, oh my gosh, like something completely unexpected. So it's fun to see who's getting these experiences. How do we connect with the hybrids? Play. High frequency. Honestly, reconnecting with our inner child, with our inner light. So only in that frequency can we connect with them, in that high frequency, which is again another sign that it's going in a good direction. So when we have certain input regulation and certain negative timeline energies, it disappears. That veil closes. And I've experienced this myself. When I'm in kind of more of the negative, looking at the stuff going on in the world happening, it closes. I cannot perceive them. I can't perceive these timelines. And it freaks me out for a while. I'm like, oh no, like open back up. So it's something to really be aware of. And because this negative input regulation, it can just take you. It has a momentum to it. You know, the positive has a momentum to it, and the negative has a momentum to it. And this current culture and the powers that were, all of that energy, wants to sway us in this other direction. So we really have to have a firm anchor in
firme en el juego, en la luz, en nuestra práctica personal.
Which path do we want? Do we want destruction? Do we want light? And we really get to choose that every day with every decision, and it's go time. It's go time. Do I have hybrid children? If you're into this kind of stuff, if you have abduction memories, if you have contact memories, it's very likely. So just, again, that's why I, from the beginning, have been talking about tuning into your body, really getting in connection with your heart, and really getting into a balanced place so that you can perceive if that is true or not. And the answer will come in the form of complete knowing and an overwhelming energy of probably emotion. And as well as some kind of memory maybe you have that's from the past that will spark something. So just stick with it and something will come through. I'm watching you. I'm like, oh. Okay, I'm almost done. Okay. What will contact assimilation be like? Okay, I've had lots of these future visions. I've seen contact actually physically happen in Sedona and in Moab, Utah. Because some beings sent me like crazy amounts of DMT during this meditation into my brain, and it just like blew open, and I just like saw what's going to happen in the future and how it feels, how it looks, as well as the hybrids coming down, and in that living experience it's like a living dream. It's like you're living in a dream. And when you're in these sacred sites, there's a little bit of a feeling of that, where you're in Hawaii or Mount Shasta, or these places are here. And it's kind of like, ooh, like a little wobbly and a little blurry, but in like a really beautiful way. So imagine that times 10, and you're like, wow, I don't know what's happening. And so it's when that dream reality merges, that subconscious really, and that higher conscious merges with this waking reality. That is what the frequency of what the assimilation looks like, in my experience.
Wait. ¿Prefieren ustedes renunciar a preguntas si le doy 10 minutos más? ¿Sí? 10 minutes.
Whoa! Okay.
No questions, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll go 5 and then questions.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So one of the most important things, and I was joking with Corey about this yesterday because all these talks are like profound, right, that have been happening this weekend, and it's like all this information, and then the last 5 minutes is like, so then what can you do in your life to live a positive timeline? And it's just always like, well, we should give that 5 minutes the whole talk, because that's where the importance really is. The information is great. The frequency is more important. And so that's what I'm going to talk about for 5 minutes. So this energy, what can we do? Now, when I was getting all these downloads of the sacred sites and going to each one and then getting all these memories and these prophetic visions and like it was a lot. Then it was like, go to Sedona, land in Sedona. So we moved to Sedona, and I've been living there for 5 years. And it's like, start doing this. Start living in community. Start truly looking at your shit. Working on your personal self, your personal development. In that space, it's kind of funny and ironic because the contact for me started to go down. And that's one of the things that happens. It's like the ego part of us that is seeking outside, seeking up there, will never be satisfied with where this ends up going, because where this ends up going is when we truly tune in to ourselves and are working on ourselves, that's exactly where we need to be. And contact goes down because you're on your path. You're on it. So they don't need to come land on your doorstep, which they have done for some people. One of the hybrid kids actually came into the woman's house, teleported into the house from a spaceship, and was like, you need to get on your shit. Straight up. That's what the hybrid said. And so we kind of want that, but that's not what we really, that's not the perspective that we need to be at. The perspective that we need to be at is, what can I do to be a better person? What can I do to serve the collective and myself? So some of the things that we can do to do that is move into a collective consciousness, because we're very individuated. So in some way, connect as a community, because they're a collective and we need to be a collective, but not an unconscious collective, but a truly conscious collective that comes together. So living in community is one way to do that, because that brings up all of your stuff and you get to look at it and work through things much more quickly. Being in sacred sites, being in high vibrational places, that does it. High vibrational food, huge. That's huge. Moved to Sedona, boom, that was all that was important for years. For the first few years was get very clear about a high vibrational diet and what you are intaking into your body. Organic, living food, and really clean, beautiful water in glass. Yeah, go find springs and like drink that. That will change everything. You want some contact experiences, you want some memories? Drink clean spring water, sacred spring water, and eat clean food, and it'll start to come back. So the food is a huge thing. Meditation, silence, presence, like we were talking about, getting into that space. Because in this field, you're going to need all of that to be able to handle these different frequencies. A huge one is truly living your mission, purpose, your excitement, what you came to Earth to do, what you came to Earth to give. Huge. Because, say when these hybrid kids come, or whatever else happens, you can't like be going to a job. You've got to be like contributing your gifts to humanity. So that's huge. And when you align with that, the contact will start coming through too. It's funny because it seems like the things that you don't want to do, you know, like you have this, say, a relationship that isn't working, or this communication that you just don't want to talk about, and you finally do it. You go through that threshold and you actually share your authenticity and cleanly go in the direction of a positive timeline. Boom, you'll be rewarded. So at the beginning, you will be rewarded with some of these memories. But once you truly get on the path, you don't need them because you're in a knowing state. And you step into the actual cosmic being, cosmic bloom that you are. So you don't necessarily need to have any extraterrestrial land because you realize that you are one. And you realize that you are infinity. And that's ultimately what it all is about anyways. So the idea is not like, oh, yes, a new thing, hybrid children, and like to connect with them in that way, or any other galactic thing that comes through. In a way, it doesn't matter. And if you're connecting with certain beings that have your best interest at mind, at heart, that's what they will share. That it's all about you coming into your full power, you coming into your full awakening, because we are the ones that we've been waiting for and really coming into alignment with that energy. So That's the most important.
The last minute.
One question.
No.
Okay, that's good. You can ask me a question over here.
One question, okay? Give me one smile.
Okay, one question.
Prevent them from maladapting to the darkness on this planet?
That's a good question. Really good question. The most important thing that we can do is get ourselves in order, because these kids, these star children, these hybrid children that are coming, they're we're empathic. They're hyper empathic. They just take on like whatever crap we've got going on. So it's really when we get ourselves in order and when we start moving ourselves in these directions and changing our lifestyles, moving into these high vibrational places, food, culture, love, expression, communication, when we're living that as adults for them, they will have their garden that they can truly like grow in and bloom. So it's really about us holding and creating a space for them to do what they do, and then they will do it. So giving them that space.
I have good news for you. 5 minutes more. And another smile.
This is a fun game. Okay. Time just keeps expanding.
Hi, Bridget.
Hi.
First of all, just wanted to say thanks. You've played a significant role in my ascension process. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
But really the big question I've been wanting to ask, and also to Corey and Laura and everybody, is when? When should we expect to see more of this happen, manifest?
Yeah. The when is always determined by us. It's like, how quickly can we truly just start going in this direction? So for me, I can have perceived timelines, perceived timing of when it will happen, but I'm not going to say that out loud, because I feel like we truly determine that. And if we like got on it today and we start moved in this direction, it'll happen really fast. And to me, it's at least like these hybrid children and this first contact phase, it in ways needs to happen before open contact, because it's what makes the collective consciousness receptive for first contact. So it'll happen before then. So it's just a matter of when you start doing it, it'll happen. You know?
The next
I know
question.
it's super exciting, but yeah. Yeah, unconditional, no expectations.
You know Spanish? or
I got half of that. All of it. So there's help on many different levels. The frequency just itself is awakening our genetics. We are being altered by different groups that's awakening who we are. As well as there are different groups of beings, such as like the Arcturians, who are allowing certain levels of light to come through into the incarnational being. So they dictate how much light can come into a being, not too much, or else that being won't want to be on Earth and might like go towards the suicidal route. So there's a lot of help coming in on lots of different levels. And I know exactly what you're talking about is the kids. Just even 10 years ago, it's like they're like drunk and delusional and they like can't quite see what's going on, and now they're just out of the gate like staring at you and very aware of what's going on, so you can see the changes. And it's really just a matter of like the kids got it. The kids are ready to go. The adults that are holding the space, we got to get our stuff together to really hold space and create a world that in a way they guide us to.
Bridget Nielsen, un fuerte aplauso, por favor. Préstenme